Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. Yes, that is right. My name is Sean. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. Been away from YouTube for a while. Where have I been? What have I been doing? What is happening? Is this real life? So I felt like doing a video. That's kind of as simple as I can put it. I kind of semi-retired, as most of you know, if you've been following the channel, a few months ago. Just been super busy. Work has been insanely busy for the last 6 to 8 months. My wife and I had our second child back in April, kind of during the height of the pandemic, and the family's doing great. The kids are great. Work is going great. Things are good. Just very busy, which is why I've kind of stepped away from the YouTube thing. I'm trying to limit my social media, so I'm not on Facebook anymore either. So if you want to follow along, because I'm still very much in this, you can check me out on Instagram. Link will be down below. Today's video is going to be kind of a tongue-in-cheek but half serious video on how to EDC responsibly, or how to not go broke in the EDC hobby and still sort of eventually get the things that you want. I'm just going to talk through a few things. We'll look at some stuff, the stuff you can see before you, and that'll be that. For those that I haven't heard from in a while, maybe you're not on Instagram, I'm talking to you, Stuart Harvey. I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to drop a comment down below. I would love to chat with you all. So, how to EDC responsibly, fiscally responsibly. How to not go broke in this hobby, which is easy to spend money. It's easy to be tempted. It's easy to kind of want the next thing and the next best thing. And I'm just going to give you a couple quick practical tips on what I do and what's worked for me. It may work for you, maybe not, and that's okay. But let's just get right into it. So before you do kind of a random assortment of things, right? So the first thing I'll point out is that as I've evolved in this hobby, I've definitely figured out what I like. And I've sort of stopped buying certain types of EDC gear just because I've kind of figured out what I need and what I like. One example would be pens. I still have a number of pens, but I have not bought a new pen in months. I have no plans to buy another pen. I have more than I need. They all write, and I'm good on pens. So I'm kind of over the pen thing. Flashlights would be another area where I've definitely kind of done a 180. I've reviewed a number of flashlights on this channel, as you know. At one point I had probably 100 flashlights, if not more, a lot of Olight flashlights. I actually think I only own one Olight flashlight, which is crazy to say, but it's true. I think I have about a half a dozen flashlights total in my collection, ones that I actually carry and use. So again, the flashlight thing, I kind of figured out what I like, what I use, what I need, and that's more of a practical thing. The pens are more of a practical thing. When it comes to knives, this is still very much a hobby and a passion and something I'm very interested in. And so although you haven't seen me on YouTube, I've still been doing the knife thing, buying, selling, modifying, dyeing handle scales, things like that. So how do I do this? What are my basic philosophies on how to do this responsibly? The first and foremost for me is I don't buy anything, literally anything, but certainly not anything in the EDC hobby on a credit card. It's something I don't do. So I would encourage people for the most part to try to stay away from going into debt to get something that is a luxury item, right? It's not a necessity, right? It's not groceries to feed your family. It's a true luxury item, so I stay away from credit cards. The second thing is I don't ever dip into like a savings account or any sort of investments. Obviously, those things need to stay in place for their intended purpose. So how can you get a $300 knife if you don't have $300? Well, what I've done, and this is a Spartan Palace, by the way, in S45VN. This is actually a flipper, a button lock flipper, and I just deleted the flipper. I removed it, and I think I did a pretty good job. Came out pretty well. Looks rather professional, if I say so myself. I just prefer it as a thumb stud knife. But how would you get something like that, for example, if you don't have $300? Well, for me, it was a matter of reducing my collection in its volume. I had, gosh, close to 300 knives in my collection at one point. And that's a lot of knives. Right now I'm at about 100, maybe a little less. So I've gotten rid of probably 175 knives over the last 6 to 8 months. So again, if you've been following me on Instagram, you've seen new knives, you've seen me selling knives. If you've only been following me on YouTube, that may be a shock to you, but I've significantly reduced my collection in its volume. And so if I want to buy something like this Chavez, for example, this Chavez 229, I got to sell something because I want my collection to be self-sustaining. That is my goal, self-sustaining collection, meaning I'm never spending new money on this sort of stuff. I'm always funding these products from within my collection, either by trading or selling. So if I really want this, I got to get rid of something. I got to make a sacrifice and give something else up. So, you know, in this example, I think I sold like a more rare Benchmade 940 model and was able to essentially use that money to buy this. Or, you know, I could sell 2 or 3 decent Spyderco knives and use that money to buy this K2 from Riot Knives, which is one of my favorite knives of 2020 for sure. I think it's just, it's unbelievable. But again, I was not going to just spend $400 out of my checking account. I needed to figure out a way to fund these things kind of from within the collection. So those are kind of my main philosophies: is no credit cards, no dipping into savings accounts, and really kind of taking time to curate my collection to the things that I truly like and enjoy. And over time, I've pretty much figured out what I like, right? When the latest, greatest knife gets announced, I immediately know whether I'll probably like it or probably won't like it. And I'm not buying things just for the sake of buying them. I used to do that some, especially kind of for the channel, right? To test out the newest budget knife from Steel Wheel. Like I would buy all of them. And now I just kind of avoid things that I know will probably get sold and try to only buy things that will be mainstays in the collection. And again, trading up to get those things is one good way to do it. Here's another newer edition. This is a Spyderco Sage Model 2. This is the titanium frame lock version of one of my favorite knives. I bought this from my good buddy Jack Farmboy. Love this thing. This fixed blade you see here is pretty unbelievable. And I'm not a fixed blade guy, as you probably know if you've watched the channel. This is made by a guy named Randy Wirtz out of Washington State. Totally USA made knife, a true custom fixed blade. Nitro V steel, this gorgeous green thumb G Carta with a black G10 pin and liners. It's just, he's a perfectionist, and so am I. And this knife makes me very happy. Great guy to work with. I do still carry a Victorinox Pioneer almost every day. Probably one of my all-time, like top 5 all-time favorite knives, the Victorinox Pioneer, and that's a good budget option. I find a Dragonfly 2 in my pocket most days, or a lot of days, but here's a good example. I did just sell about 6 of these because I had way more than I needed. And so I sold like 6 Dragonflies, and that could fund my next, you know, $400 knife, like this Spartan Harsey folder, right? So again, making sacrifices, deciding, okay, do I really love the Dragonfly so much that I need to own 12 of them in every color? No, I don't love it that much. I do still love the Native 5 that much. So I do still collect this model, and I have it in a lot of different variations. This is the newer teal color, and I swapped a black blade onto it because I thought that looked pretty awesome. Here's the same knife, the same handle that I dyed purple and also put a black blade on. That one's in 4V, I think. So I'm definitely still a collector of the Spyderco Native. That's for sure. Old habits die hard, so I'm not completely off that wagon. But yeah, I've just kind of, over the months, I've decided what I really like, what works for me, what I'm using. And when it comes to stuff that's just part of the collection, making a decision like selling 6 or 8 dragonflies, that reduces my collection by 6 or 8 knives. And if I replace that with one knife, I have one knife that I really love, and my total collection has reduced by 7, right? If I sell 8 to buy one, then I'm slowly reducing the total number and curating that collection the way that I want, and I'm doing it from within the collection itself. So that's just some of the philosophies that I've been using lately, and they seem to be working for me. So yeah, that is how I EDC responsibly, and how I, at least I hope, am maintaining a level of fiscal responsibility when I'm engaging in this hobby, so that I'm not wasting money or spending too much money. Just kind of keep it in the family, so to speak. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your philosophies when it comes to how you kind of do the EDC thing? Do you just buy what you want when you want? Do you are you a little more picky? Do you buy multiples of the same knife? Do you have a huge collection? Do you have a smaller collection? Because I'd love to hear your feedback. And I've got some of my kind of go-to like knives that I carry and just beat on. I've got one Sebenza that I just totally beat on. I've got a bug out, this Dragonfly, this Pioneer, one of these Harsey folders I have that I beat on pretty good. But a lot of these are kind of more collectible for me. So I'm definitely still a knife collector. A lot of these won't see a ton of use, or at least a ton of pocket time. They'll see use around the house and around the office, but so I kind of have my collection is like half collection, half users. So that's kind of how I've approached it. So yeah, if you have any questions about any of the particular knives or gear you see on the table, feel free to let me know. But I think that'll do it. I may do another video here before too long, maybe not. But I thought, what the hell? Let's film one, get one out there, say hey to everybody, see how you're doing, and talk knives for a few minutes. So that is it. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate it so much. Hope you're all doing well. As Zach from Zach Stuff always says, do something kind for somebody today. I think now more than ever, we could definitely use some good vibes and some kindness out in the world. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much. Be well, and we'll talk soon.